Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into a really fascinating story. It spans 17 years, focusing on Sudanese entrepreneur Ahmed El-Mutasim Mohammed Ahmed.
Right, and his efforts to foster sustainable development back in Sudan.
Exactly. And we've got quite a mix of materials to work with here. Personal stories, resumes, project ideas, even Facebook posts and video links. A real variety.
Mm-hmm. So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive.
Is to really unpack Ahmed's main initiatives, the big challenges he faced, and what we can learn from it all about driving development in, well, a complex place like Sudan.
Looking for those aha moments, the innovation, the sheer
Yeah,
perseverance.
that's staying power. Okay, so where do we start? He returned to Sudan in 2008.
That's right, 2008. And what's really interesting is the background he brought back with him. We're talking 2 decades: sales, marketing, business development, planning, project management, even engineering consultancy.
Wow, across Sudan, the U.S., Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
It's quite a diverse skill set.
it really is. And it seems he tried to put it to use pretty quickly, got involved in some early government reforms.
Yeah, I saw that, helping set up units within ministries and organizations. But the materials use this phrase, cloudy conditions,
Hmm.
and suggest it didn't really stick long term.
Well, that's often the case, isn't it? In environments undergoing reform, you might have individuals with great skills, great drive.
But the system itself,
Yeah.
inertia,
Hmm.
competing priorities.
Exactly. Maybe the frameworks just weren't there yet to really support and, sustain those new initiatives. It kind of highlights the gap between one person's push and the whole system needing to be ready for change.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Still, he didn't seem to stop. By 2010, he'd set up the Investment Development Unit at the National Research Center, the NCR,
Right, a key research body.
and his own NGO, too, Optimistic Hope for Sustainable Development. There's a Facebook group for that one.
And he was already thinking about practical application with this innovative patent graduate enabling program and community enabling program, GEP and CEP.
GEP and CP, right? There are Facebook and WordPress pages for that. What was the innovative part? What was he trying to do there?
It looks like a direct attempt to, well, commercialize intellectual property, to take patents from research and give graduates, give communities a way to actually use them for economic benefit.
Bridging that gap between the lab and the real world.
Precisely. That's often a huge hurdle in development contexts. And you see that practical focus again with his later work, collaborating with the Ministry of Social Development in Khartoum, the macrofinance unit at the Bank of Sudan.
He wasn't just talking theory then. He designed an actual strategy, how NGOs could help spread microfinance in Khartoum.
Yeah, and apparently it was used for a bit, though it eventually stopped.
Okay. And he wrote a book, too, Window Towards Sustainable Development. Showed it to government officials.
It really paints this picture of someone just constantly trying to find concrete ways forward, offering tangible solutions.
But then came a major challenge, the cessation of South Sudan.
Yeah, that context is crucial. He mentioned significant budget cuts because of it, leading to the termination of many expert contracts, things not directly tied to the highest levels of government.
And that included his contract at the NCR.
It did. Now, you'd think that would be incredibly discouraging.
Absolutely. A major setback.
But he specifically notes he never got disappointed. He just kept going. That resilience, that's a really significant point here.
Definitely a key takeaway.
Yeah.
And that led him to set up his own company, El-Tasmanians Inc. for Sustainable Development Co.
Yeah.
LTD.
Right. A shift towards the private sector, maybe for more autonomy, but still driving at that same core mission.
Okay, so that takes us into the next phase, sort of 2015 onwards. What stands out here?
Well, one thing is his use of online platforms, strategically building communities, sharing knowledge. He set up these WhatsApp groups, Sustainable Development Finance for Development Group and Fin4Fev Group.
Bringing together Sudanese elites, influential people for discussion. There's a Facebook post about it, too.
Yeah, convening these thought leaders. And it wasn't just idle chat. We've got an example, Business Planning 01 on Google Drive.
Oh, interesting. What was the goal with those discussions?
It seems the aim was to bring the latest thinking, the newest online tools, disruptive technologies, and make them accessible, simplify them for the Sudanese context.
That shows a real awareness of global trends
Yes,
and proactively trying to adapt them locally.
definitely. And you see that reinforced by his engagement with the World Bank's Fin4Dev MOOC.
The massive open online course on finance for development.
Exactly. On Coursera, 8X, he did it in 2015 and again in 2017, constantly learning.
And that learning fed directly into something pretty ambitious, didn't it? a project proposal in 2015.
A huge one, a $2 billion proposal, unlocking the potential of the African developing countries using the new innovative approach of Fin4Dev MOOC.
$2 billion. Wow, what kind of principles from that MOOC might have inspired something on that scale?
Well, those courses often push leveraging tech for financial inclusion, finding new ways to finance projects, building local capacity. So you can imagine a proposal like that aimed to apply those ideas across various challenges in multiple African countries. Serious ambition.
And he kept producing analyses, too. In 2017, a detailed case study on fixing the Sudanese economy. We have YouTube links for that, English and Arabic.
Plus other related videos. It's just the sustained effort analyzing problems, proposing solutions for major national issues.
That's pretty impressive.
And it got noticed to some extent. He was nominated as a Coursera course champion. There's a YouTube link for that too. Shows his active participation was recognized in those global learning circles.
He also got involved with public-private partnerships, right? The APMG certification program.
Yes, another critical area for development, how government and private companies can work together. We've even got the user guide for the online training. He was clearly building expertise in these key mechanisms.
Which leads us to early 2018 and another World Bank online course. This one on public finance management reform using Slovakia as a case study.
Right, a really structured program. 6 modules.
Do you walk us through what those covered? Why would that be important for his goals?
Sure. The modules were macro fiscal forecasting,
Yep.
basically predicting the government's financial picture. Then medium-term budget framework and performance budgeting, how to plan spending over several years and link it to results.
Okay, makes sense.
Then cash and debt management, public sector accounting, and reporting the nuts and bolts of handling government money and being transparent about it.
Crucial stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then public internal financial control, making sure the systems work properly. And finally, IT support for PFM and open data, using technology for better financial management and transparency.
So really foundational knowledge for anyone wanting to impact sustainable development. How public money is managed underpins almost everything else.
Exactly. And it was intensive. A week per module facilitated by experts. He had to pass quizzes, complete 2 big capstone exercises for the certificate.
And the facilitators were top-notch, like Mr. Ludovic Oder.
Yeah, former director at the Slovak Ministry of Finance, now vice governor of their central bank. Plus others like Rudwika Patasharia and Jan Marusnek. He was engaging with serious expertise.
And again, he didn't just learn it for himself, did he?
No, there are references, again via Google Drive, to discussions about this specific course within that elite WhatsApp group he ran.
So learning and immediately sharing, discussing it with peers in Sudan. It's a pattern.
It really is, connecting global knowledge back to the local context, trying to make it actionable.
Okay, so if we step back and look at this whole 17-year journey, what really stands out?
Well, first, that incredibly broad experience he started with. Then his willingness to jump into different sectors, NGOs, government work, his own company, always proactive.
And that constant engagement with international learning, bringing back knowledge.
Definitely. And maybe above all, just the sheer persistence, facing setbacks like the contract termination after South Sudan's cessation and just keeping going.
Yeah, that unwavering focus despite the challenges.
Yeah.
What I find surprising maybe is just the breadth of it all. He wasn't just focused on one narrow thing.
No, he was tackling government reform, NGO work, private sector, online education, connecting dots, always aiming that global knowledge at Sudan's specific needs.
So it leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? What is the real impact of one person's initiative, that kind of relentless perseverance when you're trying to drive systemic change, especially in tough environments?
Yeah, what can we really learn from Ahmed's multi-pronged approach over almost 2 decades? And maybe more fundamentally, what helps or hinders these kinds of long-term visions? What allows them to actually take root and make a difference?
Definitely something to mull over. A lot to think about there.